The partnerships that suck are people who just go, hey, this is a partnership program, which is that we will sign you up for our product and then you sell it to your clients and then we'll give you some money. Welcome back to Marketing in the Raw. My friend, my coworker, my co-host for the intros, Deanna. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Adam. How are you? I don't think I ever asked you that.
I know it's okay. I've assumed you just didn't care. Don't just do it now because we're recording that you want to.
Look, this is proof. All of you people out there have my back. I just asked him how he's doing.
And it'll be the only time ever she does it. She'd never do it again. It's just a one-way relationship here. Speaking of relationships, kind of in a way, the theme of the conversation here today is partnerships and partnerships in marketing. And it got me thinking a little bit about how important over the years, at this moment, we're almost at the time, I'm not sure when we're going to publish this, but we're going to be 18 years in at Secret Sushi, the agency. And I cannot understate how important partnerships, really are. And people kind of call them partnerships often, but like after a while, you really learn what a true partnership is, a true business partnership really is. What are your thoughts on, like, as somebody who's working on things with clients on a day-to-day, and we rely on partnerships to get a lot of that done? Arguably, the relationships we have with our clients are partnerships as well. What do you look for in a good partner?
I look for communication. I mean, it sounds basic. It is. But it's not a basic skill. And unfortunately, not everyone has the ability to communicate effectively. So I look for that. I look for, depending on which direction the partnership is, if it's a client as a partner or if it's a partner that is helping us do the work. I just think communication is the most important thing. So having a partner that communicates to us anytime they've got something new and exciting going on with whatever their product is that they're offering, and then someone that listens, a company that listens, because I know, and I've learned this from working with you, Adam, is you always dive in head first. So if you're learning a new tool
And I got
or
a
we're
big
working
head.
with a new,
I've got my
and
my head knocked, so that's dangerous. But go ahead.
it gets dangerous. Yeah, it absolutely gets dangerous. But you dive in and you're willing to share feedback. And I think that our partners value that in us a lot. And I've noticed, and I hadn't experienced this before, but we have partners that we work with that are constantly asking, like, Adam, what do you think? Like, can we pick your brain for a second? Will you please test drive this? Um, and I think that trust and communication is built in a good partnership, and it's cool to watch
Yeah,
and
I
be a
mean,
part of.
I think what you're describing is important regardless of the type of partnership that it is. I think when we're thinking about like working with someone at another company or a vendor or something like that, the partnerships I always love are the ones when they're more focused on the possibilities of what we can do together versus um, the partnerships that suck are people who just go, hey, this is a partnership program, which is that we will we'll sign you up for our product and then you sell it to your clients and then we'll give you some money. Like that to me is not a partnership at all. That's you like recruiting us to sell for you. The partnerships I like are where we go, yes, we have mutual benefits here for serving clients and stakeholders, or like you said, getting feedback on a product or whatever. What is it that we can do to figure out a possibility, figure out a project we can do together, or figure out something that we can put together that helps you do something better, faster, stronger, smarter with your clients in a particular field. So um, in for the years past, a lot of the companies really did just kind of go, hey, we're going to give you software and we're going to call you a partner, and you're just going to go ahead and love what we're offering and go sell it and tell people about it and all this. And it has shifted into a more human partnership when we're thinking of things like the technology solutions that like marketers use so much at the moment. But I think that's the similar case, whether that person again is whether that partnership is with an entire company that's offering software, or whether it's some other type of partnership. I think, like you said, the listening, the communication, what you did describe as well as the sort of willingness to. I think the reason people are okay with my feedback and want to pick my brain is because I'm not trying to come at it with judgment. I'm trying to actually come at it and say, like, look, if I don't tell you my honest feedback here, we both miss out. We both don't succeed together. And if I'm willing to be in a partnership with you, I want you to succeed just as I want us to succeed. And so I have to be honest to you again, in the same way that I would do with the most meaningful personal relationships, as well as my team. I mean, you've talked about witnessing it, and I'm sure you've been received feedback. I think there's often times where we have our meeting and you're like, hey, I'm going to let you know what we're doing here. And then suddenly I'm like, you know what? And then pew, pew, pew. And I start shooting things at you. And I'm like, I mean, thankfully, in the end, I always kind of go, I don't mean to derail what you're doing. And you give me your honest feedback of whether or not I was just derailing things, or, giving you constructive feedback on what you're doing. But that communication is really key.
Yep.
So with that said, I want to be able to share, and I know you haven't had the chance to listen to it yet, but maybe you could listen to it right after this conversation along with everybody else. I had a conversation with Fedor, and I forgot how to say his name correctly because it's got some cool little accents in there, but it's like, I think he told me actually at the very beginning, it's like Simic, and he's going to kick my butt. But I like Fedor. He's actually the partnerships manager over at Databox, who is a solutions partner with us. We've worked with Databox for a number of years. Discovered them a long time ago, and Fedor stepped up and started reaching out and building a relationship with us. And I love talking to Fedor. Fedor is always positive. He's always ready to look at the possibilities. And he's always sharing kind of a wealth of knowledge of his experience in kind of all the other conversations he's having. He learns so much, and then he's willing to actually share it. So I think I'm smart and I'm thinking of this the right way. And then I talk to him and he's like, well, here's 5 additional things that you could think about doing here, doing there, to kind of level up what it is that you're doing. And so part of the partnership that we had is over the last year, we've done a number of research reports along with Databox, where we were surveying and talking to a bunch of marketing leaders and decision makers about various subjects. And we've published some of that research, and we're putting together our second one right now. But it's just one of many ways that Databox looks to work with their partners, and they always seem to keep things very kind of open and flexible. And I think they found a gem in having Fedor do it, based on he's just such a cool dude, and I think you'll be able to see it. We get to know him and talk about partnerships a little bit. I put him on the spot because he's a newly married man, and trying to ask him about how partnerships in the business sense parallel or learn from his now marriage, and seeing how he wiggles and wriggles around in that question that I ask him, which I think I'd probably do the same thing for just a moment. But I'm going to stop talking about him and let you fall in love with the conversation that I had with Fedor Šimić over the partnerships manager at Databox. Here he is.
Can't wait.
Fedor, I'm so happy to have you. This is the earliest I've recorded a podcast in a while for me. It's not super duper early, but I know that's because you're in a whole nother part of the world. Where am I talking to you from, sir?
Sir Adam, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I'm reaching out from Serbia here in Europe. So it's actually towards the end of the day for me. So I'm lucky or happy that we found a time to talk to each other that works kind of into both of our schedules.
Yeah, me too. And you were talking just beforehand about being really really busy, and that's good. Busy in a good way. And I've had the pleasure of talking to you plenty of times, and that's actually why I wanted to share you with the rest of the folks here on the podcast, because I've always enjoyed having a conversation with you. You are at Databox, and Databox is a solution partner for us, a technology partner for us in the agency. And so it's been actually about a year where I met you, and we've been working with you and the team over at Databox. And you are currently the partnerships manager at Databox, and my experience has been, as a partner, you've been incredible. You've always been incredibly helpful, knowledgeable, and never kind of made me feel like, look, man, let's just get this conversation over with because I got somebody else I got to talk to about the same thing here shortly. So, but before we get into that, tell me a little bit about you. Like, how did you get into to what you're doing at Databox, and into this role, which is arguably very much marketing?
Yeah, so actually, I never thought I would end up in this type of role and never thought I would be involved with marketing at all. So when I applied to work at Databox, I applied to be a technical support specialist. So basically, just working on tickets and technical issues, because that's what I did at my previous company. I worked as a software engineer, so I had a pretty good background in problem solving, going through code, and those sorts of things. But to go through and get into that role, into Databox, you have to kind of like learn the product. And the easiest way to learn the product is to work as a support specialist. So that was also new to me. I worked in chat, so I was answering inquiries from customers and ended up becoming quite a good communicator. I guess I was a good communicator beforehand, but I kind of like shined in that role. And then I moved into onboarding and started working with customers, agencies, and that's how I kind of got involved more and more with marketing, because they were connecting all these different data sources like Google Ads, Facebook Ads, and then you had to learn a bit more about the data source itself, right? You had to learn more about each one of these platforms. And then I moved into account management, which was kind of like a natural transition. So your relationship with the customer is just extended beyond the 30-day period. And then this opportunity arose, and Pete chose me to work as a partnership manager at Databox. And this is when I was more heavily involved with our marketing team. Previously, we were two worlds apart. I was mainly working with just customers, helping them solve things, set up their accounts. But in this role, I actually got to be involved with our marketing, and now I'm helping our partner marketing team and actually being involved in the strategy behind the marketing that we do here. So it's been quite interesting. Never thought with my technical background to be able to work in a part of marketing now. So it's
Well,
been
well,
interesting.
what part of what you were doing before do you think has been most useful in your role now, helping out with marketing?
Communication, probably those skills. I had good communication skills beforehand. In my previous company, I held some meetings with customers. They were pretty large customers. But here I really started going on one-on-one calls with people, and that skill has stayed and just kept on getting better as I moved on through the role. And of course, getting to know the data just from working with all these customers has been extremely helpful. So it's all been coming together, and that's how it all I got here where I am now.
Well, I find it interesting because I heard a few things, right? I heard sort of the interactions that you've had and the ability to communicate well, understanding the product. But then something I didn't think about when I knew I was going to talk to you was that just because of the nature of the product, you were faced with marketing data all the time, because the product itself is about showing data and working with data. And so folks were bringing to you, you know, marketing data and sales data and all these things that ultimately you were getting exposed to over and over and over again, maybe even interpreting in some ways and working with them. And so little by little, you were being, I don't know if this is the right way of saying it, but like kind of like spoon-fed snapshots of the kind of things that marketers were looking at on a day-to-day basis from a performance perspective, right?
Yeah, definitely. I got to learn all these different metrics because the tool, as it is on its own, is useless unless you have the data to feed into the tool, right? And then through the tool, you get, as you said, introduced to all these different sources and areas of each business, right? So you really get to learn through the tool, kind of like in a opposite approach, right? When you use Facebook or whatever, you create the data feed, but like here you're kind of like reverse engineering. You're going through the back into the front, so it's really interesting. But definitely, I think it's an awesome starting point. This first role, like a support specialist, you get to really learn more about marketing, sales, just through the data, and then all the interactions you have with customers. And in those other roles, you get to take a uh, step ahead, and then learn more, even more, and take it to the next level. And as you go through each one of these roles, you're just more involved with the data and all these different areas of marketing. So you get to really expand your knowledge quite well. And that's what I also did. And I really enjoyed the whole journey.
And so the opportunity came about to move on over to this, partnership manager role. At what point, when that popped up, like, did you instantly go, I'm ready for that, I want to do that? Or was there sort of this moment where you had to step back for a second and go, wait, I actually am interested in that, or I could do that. I'm as I look at this opening, like, did you even pay attention to the I guess open position when it first came out?
It was kind of created for me. I talked with Pete, and he asked me like what are the things I really enjoyed doing at Databox, and then pretty much like what I told him was perfectly in line what the role was about. Talking with people, working with benchmarks and surveys. So like it was really natural, It just happened naturally. It's I don't even know. Like they came to me offering me my dream job, and I was like, of course I want to do it. Right?
Well, they recognize in you, I think, the value that even me on the receiving end finds, right, is that you're personable and great, like you said, at communicating and all that sort of stuff. I know you didn't come on here to get sung with praise, but I always look forward to when I do get the chance to talk to you. And I think that again, partnerships, right? Who better to put in a position where you are creating relationships and fostering relationships, and then trying to help guide folks through the value of those relationships than somebody who has those skills. Let's talk about partnerships, a bit. Can you give us an idea, especially for those who are thinking about like launching a partnership program of some kind, or think it's an untapped area where a lot of folks might not even think about it as sort of a channel for marketing. How are you going about that? What does partnerships mean to you and the Databox, and how did that come about?
Partnerships, in my mind, is truly collaborating on something, learning from each other, and growing together. It's not about just money. It's not a transaction. As operating in this space, I've learned more and more companies are pretty much masking partnerships as just another sales tactic. They're using the word partnerships to get on a call with someone and then pretty much pitch them, hey, like pay us this much and we'll feature you in our content, in our newsletter, on our blog, or whatever, right? So it's never been about that. It's been basically about truly collaborating with each other, doing something together, and basically promoting each other, growing together, learning from each other. So that's, in my mind, what a partnership is. If there's money at the end of it, like if both parties score and win, why not? Like that even makes it better, right? So that's kind of what I think about it. And that's the value we have for partnerships at Databox.
What are you using as sort of metrics, or how are you measuring the success of what it is that you're doing?
Uh-huh. So first, we're looking at how many people are interested in actually partnering up with us, either through co-marketing or some other activities. And a metric that we measure the success, I guess, is how many partners have promoted or created content with us, promoted some piece of our content, like the surveys that we have, or built one of these benchmark groups and promoted the content from the group. So that's kind of how we measure it. There's no like dollar signs attached at the end. If some partners recognize that Databox is a tool that can help solve some of the problems that they're having or solve some of the problems their clients have and want me to refer to them to someone from our team to give them a demo, like that's great. Like, of course, like I'm not gonna stand in the way, right? But it's not the main objective of it.
Was there ever a time, share with me actually for a moment, because we didn't get a chance to talk about, you talked about co-marketing, for instance, and you even kind of left it open to some extent by saying it's looking for opportunities to collaborate on something. And I think you said that, correct me if I'm wrong, because there's a bit of an open opportunity there, depending on who the partner is and what they've got going on. You're not kind of turning it into a template that it should be exactly this particular way. You have some ideas of what you could do together, but you're looking and saying, like, what are the possibilities? Let's have a conversation around it. What are some of the ways that you are collaborating with other folks specifically at Databox?
So like one example is how we collaborate together. Like we created that survey, then we created a report together, we co-promoted the survey together. So that's one way of cooperating with each other. Other ways could be coming onto our podcast and then getting featured in our newsletter, becoming a guest author on our blog. So we're looking for people to create content with us, like regularly on our blog, contribute. We also have events that we're running every 2 weeks, where we discuss the data from each one of these surveys that we have, and then we have experts that we feature in these events. So there's been a lot of different ways. It's never like the typical, hey, like, let's exchange links or whatever, right? I get those every day and I always turn them down. So there's different ways we can cooperate, but you can't really fit everyone in a bracket like, hey, this is the only way. But through that conversation, you can maybe find new ways you can collaborate with each other. So there's always like a custom solution, right? Possible, but typically it's been these activities.
What do you think is the underlying most important sort of day-to-day thing that's although there's all these different ways for you to collaborate, what's the kind of underlying day-to-day, what's at the core of all of it? Like, what is maybe the skill besides, let's say, communication, or the thing that you're needing to do there? I mean, arguably, I would think it'd be relationships, right? Like being able to manage and relationships, communication. It's something that's important across the board for everything. But in addition to that, like being able to build relationships and understand within those relationships what's going to be providing the most value between both of the parties, and how you can collaborate and find that sort of palette of opportunities that you can then paint that relationship with, so that it's mutually beneficial for folks. What's at the core of that, do you think, in regards to, like, if you were going to go hire somebody to duplicate Fedor and do something similar, what is that characteristic you'd be looking in that person to make sure they were successful in this kind of role?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question, honestly. As you said, like communication, relationship building, those are core skills. Problem solving, I would say, is one of the most vital skills you can have, and also the willingness to learn, accept feedback, never shy away from something. Never to be afraid of anything. There's always opportunities to learn and try something new. If you are afraid and shy away from it, you'll never experience growth. So through this role, I've constantly been pushed into new things that I've never done before that seemed scary, like recording a course, like going on podcasts. I never thought that was gonna happen in the long run, right? But all these things started happening, and if I were to like shy away from it, that will be it. That will be the end of it. But through not being afraid, being willing to step outside of the comfort zone. So that is a core skill, I would say. That enabled me to grow and excel through this role and just build and maintain better relationships. And it's never you create a conversation, build a relationship, do this, do that, and then set and forget it. It's never like that. These are relationships that last and that will always be there with you. So it's that. I
Well,
hope I answered
I
your
think,
question.
yeah, you did. And I think even to some extent what you were describing is a willingness to be present, and part of relationship building is, like, especially in the world we live in right now, means FaceTime with folks, even if it's not in person. I mean, you're talking to me
Yeah.
from Serbia, and and I'm not in Serbia, and so, but we have FaceTime when we have a conversation. It makes a big difference when we're on video and talking and trying to find ways to collaborate. I know that your time zone is very different than a lot of the folks you work with, but you make an effort to be present. And not everybody who might be in this position is going to have that much of a drastic difference in let's say time zones. But generally speaking, relationships and about being present at the same time, often in order to have those conversations, does mean kind of some level of flexibility, and in working maybe sometimes in dynamic ways. I mean, you were just again talking about all the conversations that you have today, which are hopefully all great relationship building conversations that you're having. And I guess somebody who can be energized, at least, or have the energy to have those conversations, because for some people that can be draining, having back-to-back meetings, or having to have a period of time where you do have to be kind of present and active, with having FaceTime with folks. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. It's not easy at all. You have to be 100% present all the time on these calls. And when you have back to back to back to calls like this, it's never easy. But you just got to push through it and go the extra mile. So unless
Have
you have
you? Sorry, go ahead.
unless you have a tennis match afterwards, then you kind of like have
Oh,
to.
that's right. I guess your tennis experience, Fedor is a tennis player. Your tennis experience helps you, right? It's just like volleying the ideas back and forth with that other person. I mean, talk about partnerships. Do you ever play doubles, or is it only singles?
That's a great question as well. Like my whole life, so I've trained tennis and competed a bit for like 10 years, sort of, but never played doubles up until this year. And actually, I'm playing like a club league here, and I'm playing doubles with my friend who I trained tennis with since I was a kid. So like we've been friends. We're the same age. We went to school together, and now we're playing doubles together. And actually, we're pretty good. We have like 5 wins, 2 losses. So we're gonna go to the playoffs for sure. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I've always enjoyed it because it's an individual sport and everything relies on your shoulder. So that's also kind of me in a way. I've always been the one who likes to shoulder all the responsibilities and pressures because I know that I can deliver. Like I will perform, and I always
You're
like
in
to rely on
control of
myself
your
the most.
ability to do that, right?
Yeah, but then you miss that teamwork aspect. You miss collaborating with other people. So through this role, like in account management, you don't really collaborate that much with the team, except in kind of like sharing the knowledge. But here in this role, you're collaborating with marketing, you're collaborating with sales. So there's more collaboration between different teams, which is really interesting to me. I'm working with our analyst to promote these events on LinkedIn, and we just from got from like 20 participants from the first event to now having 100 plus registrants from this event tomorrow. So like she and I kind of like created the process, then improved it. So it's been really cool, like collaborating with other people. But at heart, like I'm a really individual performer. And
Well,
it's also really important to be able to function independently from others, to be able to deliver and be accountable on your own without being managed from the top, micromanaged, etc. So that's a really important thing.
and you kind of talked about like marketing, sales. What do you feel like? What makes up a good team, or maybe support team, or what part of the organizations do you think makes the most sense to sort of be a part of this, even if it's just in part, not in whole, when it comes to partnerships?
In partnerships, I think you have to be a jack of all trades, you know? So I think you have to know a little about everything. You can't really know everything about everything, right?
We talk
But
about customer success, product, sales, and but of the folks that are at Databox, for instance, in your role, who are you kind of working with that you didn't maybe expect to, or who are you bringing in to, like, if an organization's listening to this, somebody's listening to this, and they're saying, "Oh, I want to do this." Is it just simply a marketing role, or is this something that they need to be doing in collaboration, or there's value that they can bring in their role to other parts of the organization beyond just marketing?
yeah, there's also that collaboration with sales because you can send through partnerships, you meet these people who haven't really tried out the tool and don't know anything about your tool. Like they don't know anything about Databox. They might want to get to know the tool, and then you work with sales to introduce that person. So like there's collaborations with those teams. They didn't really know what we're doing. Like sales had no idea what partnerships, what benchmark partnerships mean within the company. So we had to kind of like brief and people into like what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, how we could work together. So the same thing happened with account management, like customer success. They had no idea what we're doing. Like, who are these guys? What are they talking about? All these benchmarks and surveys on LinkedIn. Like, what's going on? Like, how can we maybe get involved, collaborate? So there's also now collaboration between us where they identify some agencies that would like to kind of like step up their partner game, I guess, and then they connect them with me. So this role collaborates basically with a lot of different teams. Maybe not product as much. Okay, we did collaborate together a bit on some of the functionalities within benchmarks, but most of it is marketing, sales, and customer success. But yeah, it's cool, really interesting because of the collaboration, which previously I didn't have, you know. So expect a lot of collaboration with different teams, getting involved in everything almost, you know.
So speaking of partnerships and new partnerships, and we talked about how tennis has prepared you. You just got married recently. And so congratulations on that. How has your role and all the things you're doing in partnerships influenced or impacted, has it impacted in any way like marriage, and has marriage impacted your, I mean, that's the ultimate relationship in some ways. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but as you were talking, I was like, that makes a lot of sense, right? As you start to learn, you went from saying, I didn't really expect to be on podcasts and in front of people and present and all that, but there's a lot in regards to being present and communicating and all of those sorts of things that also get you, that are part of that ultimate, one of those types of relationships, a marriage, right?
Yeah.
Having a significant other, has that influenced anything with you? Has it? I'm trying not to drum up any difficult stuff, but I find parallels with it with me, right? When you learn to work with people and how that might hopefully bleed into how you communicate with the folks around you, not only your spouse, but even like close friends and family and all that sort of stuff. But I'm interested, as a young guy who just got married, has that had any impact on, or have you practiced anything out in communicating with your wife that you've ultimately, been able to bring over after test driving, in communication with a partner?
I don't know, honestly, I don't know. So maybe patience, I've learned to be more patient, but my wife's also in this space, I would say. She has her own agency and she works with private language schools. So we've kind of cooperated with each other on the business side as well, not just the relationships, right? side. So I've shared knowledge that I've learned by working with a lot of agencies with her, and even invited her to some of the events that we had. So she kind of like got to know Databox, some of our partners. I introduced her to some of our partners that way. So she kind of like knows the people I hang out with through these meetings. So there's that. But in terms of like actually impacting our relationship, I don't think as much, I wouldn't be able to tell you like one specific thing, but she's noticed these characteristics that are really important for this type of role is that just like building a relationship out of nothing. Like we went to trips together in, for example, Bosnia, where I was able to just start talking with people out of the blue who didn't even know who I was, and ended up connecting with them on LinkedIn. And she was like, what? How are you doing this? Like, this is insane. Like, I was never able to like just start talking with someone. I ended up complimenting a guy's laptop, and he said like, man, I'm sitting here every day and no one ever noticed my laptop or said anything about it. You were the first one. And I'm like, see, I know.
Well, and even what you described was, you know, your wife, and you both were able. She participated in some of these events, like you said, right? So she got to know folks and everything. So there's sort of seeing those relationships that you've built, and even her, I guess, you know, in that way, noticing how quickly you were able to like connect. I mean, it really is about connection at that point, but how quickly you were able to connect with folks. So it's interesting that she's able to, in the work that she does, and then obviously her proximity to you, kind of notice these relationships that you're building, and again, that skill of how quickly you're able to connect with somebody just kind of out and about as well. Has there been any time in kind of your journey that you had something in partnerships that kind of, I don't want to say went wrong, but went south for a little bit or didn't go as expected? And then what did you do to adapt and kind of get it moving in the right direction?
Yeah, always trying to be a helpful hand, but you should make a decision when someone really wants help and doesn't really want to be involved. So usually the break off is either people are really invested and want to work on the partnership together, or this is not like, it's a nice to have, but not at this moment, and then they move away. So never really came into like conflicting situations because I'm never really pushing people, you know, that's kind of the good way. I just want to gauge interest. Either you're interested or not, that's fine. Like, both outcomes are fine. At least I'll know the answer and I can move forward, not spend too much time working on that particular case. So never really came into a conflicting situation, but definitely need to be able to know how to prioritize your time with each partner you have, you know? So more invested people, obviously, you want to spend more time with, right? Help them
How do you
succeed.
gauge a good partner? How do you identify that somebody's a good partner? Or how do you, if you were to put sort of the gold star over the folks that you felt were great partners, what are the qualities of a good partner that you think for you?
So, a lot of people, you know, say they will do stuff. They would say that this is awesome, but then they don't follow through. So that's an easy way really to gauge someone's interest, because we set up next steps and there are certain activities that you need to do yourself in order to move forward, right? If you don't do it, you're not probably interested, right? I might follow up if you ask like, what's going on? Maybe you need help. If you don't reply, you're not interested. So it's been really easy to distinguish the really invested, like gold stars, as you said, people versus the rest who might just be exploring, might just want to learn what we're doing, might think of it as a nice to have, but not at this moment, you know? So in my sort of role, it's been much easier. We still try to find like ways to work with each other, but if there's no interest on a mutual level, then it doesn't really make sense, you know, to pursue it. There's no forcing here. No forcing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's no better partner than one that you've forced to be in that role and made, you know, do things under duress. Those folks, it's not going to end well, for sure. And what's the most surprising sort of, because again, we talk about this open palette of collaboration, and although you have a bunch of opportunities, in my experience, you've always been willing to have a conversation about what could be possible. What's the most sort of surprising or fun, or one of your favorite collaborations that you did that you just kind of came out of left field?
So it's definitely with the people who seem interested and then they don't do anything, and then they come back and just want to do everything at the same time. Like that's my favorite. I'm like, what got you to change? Like, we just did this and like want to do everything now. Like something I saw on LinkedIn and it finally clicked, and I want to do this, and then we roll out and do awesome stuff together. So definitely the ones that seem they got away and then come back. I mean, that's kind of like with everything almost, right?
You plant the seed. You think that they're not one of those folks that are willing to follow through, or just not interested. You don't want to force it, but that seed's been planted enough that they then come back in some matter of months, huh?
Yeah, those and the ones that just click right from the start, that's my favorite. Like I meet someone and they're all already thinking of the same things that we have, and we just like naturally fit into place and start collaborating. So yeah, those two types, because you really don't want to lose anyone, right? So like when they come back really invested, you love that feeling. Same thing if you talk with a client, right? Like if they gone like a prospect, if they gone really cold from during a long time, then come back like, we just want to work with you now. Like that's probably one of the best feelings you can get, right? They almost got away.
What tools are you using to help manage those relationships? Can you take us through sort of maybe either the tools or even maybe the process or workflow, like on a day-to-day basis? How are you guys managing those?
We manage everything in HubSpot. We use HubSpot for everything. So that's the number one tool we use, and the medium is LinkedIn. So all the conversations probably get started through LinkedIn. We don't really rely on email, and we also look at our existing customers and who wants to do co-marketing and all these other activities with us. So HubSpot number one, and LinkedIn also like the medium. But other tools, like we build the surveys in SurveyMonkey, and then our own benchmark tool. So those tools, I will say, are...
Share a little bit more about that with folks, because I don't think we talked much about, you mentioned SurveyMonkey and the tools. And I mean, if I set the stage a little bit, right, like we've been working with Databox as a solution provider for a long time. You and Pete reached out, and essentially about almost this time last year, I think maybe a little more than a year ago, that you were working with agency partners to do research reports. So go and interview folks and and send surveys to, can be different audiences. For us, we were having a lot of conversations with marketing leaders at tech companies and B2B SaaS and software companies around different types of themes regarding lead capture and generation and content marketing and other things, and putting that all into a report. So with your help, we did a report, and we wrapped up our first one with about 125 respondents. So we've got some results there around lead generation and channels and offers, and kind of the combination of those things, and what's working and what's not working. And then in addition to that, we have a benchmark with Databox, a benchmark group, which is, for that particular group, it's something around 2,500 companies that have connected safely and securely and anonymously their data to Databox, this group that shows where their data lands amongst this cohort of other similar companies, and make it available so that anybody who wants to check those benchmarks out can do so by participating. And so you're doing this at scale. You're doing this with lots of other folks, and this is one of your tools that you're using, at a bare minimum for partnerships, in addition to all those other things that you're doing. But this is unique to what Databox offers, and very much aligned with what Databox offers, and what Databox offers the people that it's trying to partner with.
Yeah. We've been running surveys ourselves for the past 6-7 years. We've always valued original research data, and we always created content from that data, because it's just something you can't come up with like right off the bat, and it's a great way to collaborate with people on and actually interview people, as you said, for the research. Then another step of collaboration is actually featuring people in the report you produce, featuring their quotes, linking to them. So that's a way we built a relationship with our audience, and we built a contributor base of people that really like taking our surveys, not just because they can get featured in the report, because they find the data from the research really valuable for them. Also, a difference between our surveys and a lot of other surveys are that when you complete it, you can instantly access the preliminary data. So there's already some value in it for you. It's not just like you complete this and wait 10 years for the report to get published and then look over the data, but you can instantly access the results. So this is how we created a lot of our content for our blog. And this type of content is valuable, right, to other people, because it's original research data. As I said, it's not something you can just find online or write about from your head. You actually need to interview people to gather the data and then do your own analysis around it, segment it, etc., and then create content out of it. So it's really valuable. The benchmarking tool we came up with because a lot of our users who come to Databox for their reporting needs, they wanted to find out what was the next step, like what more can they find out from their data, right? They have been doing what we call like historical benchmarking, right? Like comparing your current performance to what you had before, but they weren't really able to compare their performance to the industry or companies similar to theirs, right? That was a question we always got. And agencies, probably you've heard this from your own clients, like, so is it good? Like, is this good? Like, how do I compare? Like, how do I fare against my competitors or against the industry? So we built this tool that does it, and it actually pulls the data directly from the integration. So there's no like invalid data by you entering it into a form or whatever. Really, if you want to compare your website data from Google Analytics 4, you got to connect your Google Analytics 4 and it reads the data directly from the integration. And what's awesome about it is that you can use it for free. You can also use it for all these different integrations, not just Google Analytics. There's like 70 different integrations with tens of metrics for each integration. And it's completely anonymous, as you said. The data is completely secure. You can disconnect it at any point of time. So it gives you that extra set of value because you can see how you should perform through the benchmarks, and the survey data adds context behind the metric in terms of like what you should do based on the insights from the survey to achieve said performance. So we still haven't like married the two. It's still not perfect, right? But you can use both of these sets of data to gain more knowledge on what you should do and how you should perform. We still want to make it one place where companies can come, find out how they should perform through the benchmarks, through the metrics, and what they should do for the survey data to achieve that type of performance. So that's kind of like the ultimate goal. And as you said, we partnered up more like a year and a half ago, approximately. That's when we decided that we can stop running these surveys ourselves. We could actually partner with other agencies to create surveys together and promote them together, create content together, and take this type of collaboration to the next level. And you were pretty much one of the first partners that we did this with. So we go back a long way.
Yeah, no, you've been incredibly helpful with it, and everybody at Databox has been continuously iterating fast on all. It's so interesting to see, and I would imagine if we talk to Pete, the CEO at Databox, that the product itself. I mean, I saw just this morning his post on LinkedIn about the direction that the product is going, and I think there's been a lot of iterations with the product due to probably a lot of these partnerships that you have, the feedback loop that it's created. And so it's influencing the trajectory of what's going on within Databox from a product standpoint, and maybe even more and more about how you're going to market with the product and finding new customers. based on that spirit of like always thinking about the next thing and doing the next thing, can you share it all, like over the next 6 months, a year? What do you think is next for partnerships at Databox?
For partnerships, that's a good question. And this
And
changes
people
every-
and people specifically in regards to like, it's great all that you shared, and there's a lot to learn there. Is there something on the horizon based on your experience of what you've learned and maybe some of the tools and things that are out there that you think could be universally something folks should be looking to do over the next year, if they want to level up their current partnership program as well?
I don't know, honestly. I would not be able to give you the best answer to that question. I honestly don't know like what the next steps are. We want to create an actual reseller program at Databox for agencies, like they can actually resell the tool in a way, and also be able to deliver a consultative service on top of analytics. So actually using the data to provide instruction to their clients in a more involving kind of way, because previously we're working with a lot of agencies. Typically they just handle their marketing side, but with Databox and the functionalities we plan to bring into the tool, you'll be able to look at the whole company, the whole performance of the company, and use AI to analyze all of the data and give all the insights on what you should be looking at, have anomaly detection that can detect spikes and drops in the data. So when the tool is ready, you'll be able to use it to advise people based on the data. Basically, you be able to deliver performance analytics as a service in a way, be more of a consultant through the data, through this type of service to your clients. But might have worded that badly.
No, I think that makes sense. So knowing that these things are coming on the horizon, you've got folks that, doing a podcast and doing a research report or benchmarking group or a blog post is not low-hanging fruit, but it's easily attainable. Yeah. But even going beyond that, being able to help in the future is being able to help partners even more expand what it is that they're capable of offering their clients utilizing Databox versus it's useful as it is, but going even farther to help them build something that they can provide, like you said, from a consultative standpoint, and add even more value to what they're offering their customers.
The problem we want to solve for agencies is to help them become more of an advisor to their clients. Currently, from what we've observed by working with a lot of people, and I could be wrong, right, is that they're more perceived as someone that does the execution work, like handles the tasks, rather than someone that actually is a consultant for their overall business, right? Yep. So we want to help them solve that problem through the use of the tool, right? So when we get the tool up to that point, when we have all these AI features, because AI is all the rage now, right? So that's the end goal, being able to help them become more of a consultant to their client, being able to influence their whole business strategy rather than just handling, let's say, their marketing or their lead generation. So that's the goal, because with AI, now it's so easy to create content, right? Like anyone can do it. And that at the one point in time, the client can come and say to the agency, like, hey, I can create all this content myself using AI, right? Why do I need you? But if you're an actual consultant, if you're able to influence their whole strategy, you're not that easily replaceable, right? You're actually giving them more value than just like handling this type of work. So that's the next step, what we want to work on. And we're forming some types of partnerships in some programs where we are working with other consultants that work with agencies to help create that type of program, So it's really in the works. But yeah,
that's awesome, and I know I get to be a part of that in some way. So it's really interesting always to see what's coming out Pete always updates, and you're also very active on LinkedIn.
I try to be.
Yeah. Well, and I gotta say, this is really cool for those on video. We get to witness, based on the light of the back wall we get to witness a sunset in Serbia, based on the light that's changed behind you on the video. Before we wrap things up, Fedor, this is an opportunity for you to ask me one question before we wrap up. The only question you can't ask me is how we came up with the name Secret Sushi. That I'll tell you offline, not online, between you and me. But other than that, do you have a question for me before we wrap things up?
How did you get started with Secret Sushi? How did everything get started?
Oh my gosh, I didn't expect that. Well,
Really?
the short answer is, very similar to we talk about, like, off the beaten path of not thinking you're going to be in marketing, but there's a mix of things that I did in my previous life that kind of placed me here. I worked a lot with people. I worked with adults and children with disabilities. So I worked in like a care home. I worked with kids with autism in a classroom. I did leadership stuff within youth communities throughout California when I was younger, and then ultimately also I was just very much a geek. I was always into technology. My background was also in like design, so graphic design. They called it new media design back in the day, which was anything on a screen. I don't know when it became from new to old media or current media, and ultimately, at the time of this recording, 18 years ago, I made the decision to say, hey, I'm going to start. I had moved from all of the work that I was doing with sort of like the care home and vocational training and all that sort of stuff to doing design work and creative work for businesses, and became somebody who was like meeting with people, communicating and building relationships. And then ultimately, as we started the company, it was just creative services. And then I'd say probably a little over 10 years ago, I realized, oh, like, we're not just providing creative services. We're having marketing conversations. We're having business objective and goal conversations, right? We're having conversations around outcomes, and people are looking for guidance in these other areas. And during that time, all of this was evolving, social media, everything. And it sort of was this culmination of all these things, of technology, of, like creativity and content and the kindling you use for creating those conversations and interactions, engaging with customers. And then ultimately that account management and finding out what is the value or the goal that business is looking for. And so we became a full service digital marketing agency, working with, B2B companies and tech companies and all kinds of folks over the years. So that's the 2-minute version of it. So thank you for asking. But you asking me that now, because I've had other people ask me that in the past, but you asking me that now after talking with you and talking with a few other folks recently makes me reflect on how everybody's role to marketing isn't just this linear path of like, everything I wanted to do since I was a 2-year-old kid was become a marketer. Billy wanted to be a police officer, and Jill wanted to be a firefighter, and me, I wanted to be a marketer. And that's just not how it rolls. And so thanks for helping me kind of reflect on that for a little bit.
How long did it take you to like find someone to work together with as the company grew? Like, how long did you wear all the hats in the company, when you started?
Oh, that's actually a long time. I mean, I think ultimately it helped me in the end. And so on one side of the coin, I really did wish that I probably would have handed some portion of things off to somebody else more, or, partnered with somebody a little bit more. Didn't quite know how, in the sense that I felt such ownership over the outcome that I didn't want to. I was like, well, what value am I bringing if I'm handing this off to somebody else, right? And so there was a lot of that, and then realizing over time, like, in order for this to really scale in a way that is good for me, but ultimately also good for the client, because one of the advantages of of working with an agency is, you can work with one person, and that one person is not going to be that unicorn that can do everything. There are some instances of that case, but that person is still only one human being with two hands, one brain, and 24 hours in the day. But when you work with an agency and a team, you have a blended set of skills with multiple hands and multiple brains, plus the institutional knowledge that they can bring to the table. And so it took me a while to kind of really learn that, also because I take it so to heart for our clients, finding culturally the right people that care about the client as much as you do, and care about the work, which when you own a business, it's very rare to find anybody who cares about the business as much as you do as an owner. But ultimately finding those folks, I think one of the first steps is when you go out and do what you're doing, right? Building relationships and networking, you bump into people and you start to see, like, they care about marketing, and they have this vibe that works, or they need an opportunity. What can I do to work with them or invest in them and look for opportunities to partner? And then it organically turns into something bigger from there.
Yeah, the passion kind of brings you together, right?
Yeah,
For the
100%.
marketing. Yeah.
100%.
And final question, who is your favorite Avengers?
Oh, you're looking at my background here.
Maybe.
I don't know my favorite Avenger. If you're a comic book fan, Avengers is like huge, and lots of folks have been. If you're talking about only the movies, then that's a little bit of a different story. Honestly, funny enough, is as a longtime comic book kind of collector and fan of all these things, when the Marvel movies came out, it was like a dream come true. It was like, oh my gosh, after all these years, they've made movies that are very, akin to the books and align with them and fun and so on. But there were some characters that I read a little bit, and then when you see them in the movies, they made you love him more. Like Captain America, Captain America was always some dude in the comic books, but when you saw kind of how Chris Evans portrayed him in the movie, I kind of fell in love with the character. Same thing with Thor. Thor, paid attention to him, but there's something about the way that he's portrayed in the movies that got me actually to go back and start reading more of the books. But my favorite characters is the one, if you are on video, you can see, is Wolverine. So that's number one for me is Wolverine. Wolverine, Spider-Man, Hulk, and then Batman, which is obviously DC instead of Marvel. How about you?
Probably Spider-Man. I don't know why. I really liked Spider-Man. I love the Spider-Man video games. I love the movies. I haven't really watched the new ones, but the old ones with Tobey Maguire were really awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And funny enough is I usually watched all this stuff, but
Really?
I went to watch the Andrew Garfield. I'm the guy that's in the theater day one, by the way. But I didn't go watch the Andrew Garfield ones, and then recently, after watching the last Tom Holland one with folks, I went back and started watching it, and I was like, all right, I see why people might like him. It's still a little, it's not as good as the Tobey Maguires, but I could see why people like him as a
Yeah,
as a version of it.
those were just classic, right?
Yeah, well, and everything like Into the Spider-Verse and all of those. I mean, again, I'm usually there like absolutely on day one. I've got little trinkets around my office that come from getting like posters or little collector coins from being there. Like I
That's
was
cool.
at Endgame in the theaters when people were there to see it the first time, and all of the most fanatic folks are watching it and screaming when this happened in the movie or that happened in the movie. Just like the recent Deadpool and Wolverine, it was the first showing, and so you're there with all these people that are super excited about being there to see that movie the very first day, and then this uproar when a character pops out or something like that. So
It's such a different experience there compared to here. Here we don't have these like huge, big cinemas and everything. So, and the atmosphere is not that pumped up. So I'm really curious what the experience is like, and I would love to have it one day.
You'll have to plan a business trip out here when one of the big movies comes out, so you can do it.
I definitely need to plan a business trip to the States eventually. I was thinking of going for like a honeymoon, I would call it, to Mexico maybe, but that's the farthest I would go from Serbia. I visited Egypt once, and that was kind of like the farthest I went, and Turkey, I guess, but that's still sort of in Europe.
Well, you have to have as a partnership manager. I'm sure you've got a lot of folks that would be willing to see you in person and hang out. I'd be one of them. So anytime you want to come to California, just let me know. I will treat you to the movie experience. We'll figure out which movie is the best one. If you're going to Mexico, you might as well just go north a bit and go into California.
Deal.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Fedor. Man, I always love talking to you. Don't be a stranger. Well, let's reconnect soon. And thanks for sharing your experience.
Always, Adam. Great seeing you. Have a great day, my friend.